Hello again, Jacie.
Hello, Lori.
So today we were going to talk a little bit more about multidisciplinary care. So maybe if you wanted to start just by talking to everybody a little bit about what does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really passionate about multidisciplinary treatments and care because I'm a super firm believer that the whole body, mind, spirit triangle really needs to be integrated in order for healing to take place.
Yeah.
We can do a lot of coping, we can do a lot of band-aid solutions with one of those three, but
Yeah.
for really deep healing and like moving forward into becoming like that version of yourself that you've really been striving for, you
Yeah.
have to be willing to approach it on all levels.
Yeah.
So part of the mind aspect of that, of course, can be therapy. Things like challenging limiting beliefs. So it's a bit of a buzzword in the personal development world these days, but
Yeah.
um, starting to understand your mind and how your beliefs and perceptions are impacting the way that you're reacting to the world around you is obviously a crucial point of that. What people often don't realize is how important it is to incorporate your physical self-care into the mental self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've been on high levels of stress your whole life, you have to be able to interrupt the chemical stress cycle and the physical stress cycle that you're experiencing at the same time as interrupting those stressful thought patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your body is constantly in fight or flight,
Mm-hmm.
yes, changing your thoughts will help,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can change the fight and flight response and thought, you're really impacting globally the experience that you're having about stress.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and then when we integrate the kind of spiritual aspect of it, it's that having faith. And for like, I'd like to clarify what I mean when I say spiritual impacts. It's just about having faith in the process. So whether you gain that faith because you believe in yourself
Mm-hmm.
or because you believe in a higher power, it doesn't really matter where you get that from. It's just about trusting in the process, trusting that the future is going to be okay, and that you will have the tools and the strength to manage through and grow through whatever experiences you're having.
Yeah. And it's really neat too, because I think some of us are more naturally drawn to certain ways of healing. So by broadening your understanding of just, it's not just one thing, like it doesn't have to be one approach or one. I think sometimes in our desire to heal and get better, we're seeking the answer. Like,
Yes.
and I think when you start widening your definition of what that multidisciplinary type of care looks like, it can involve different types of therapy, services, interventions. It doesn't.
Yeah. One really awesome example of that is people who suffer from chronic pain and focus entirely on their diet
Yeah.
as a way to manage that, which is amazing because your diet is going to impact the amount of pain in that physical stress cycle. But if
Yep.
you're not willing to challenge your perceptions, you're not willing to shift your beliefs or your mindset, you're
Yep.
still going to be creating that mental stress that is attached to the chronic pain in some way,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
coming at it from different angles gives you a lot more freedom to move forward, and you get to meet different parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed before.
Yeah.
And that's kind of exciting.
It is really exciting. And for me, when you said that, I was just thinking about like, I love that all the disciplines now, like at one time, I think I've been working as a social worker for 20 years. Like you had your social worker, or maybe you had a physiotherapist, a medical doctor, and like we all were very, tied to our discipline. And I find now more and more, because when I follow, other disciplines, social media, like we're all sort of speaking the same language now, that different disciplines are more aware of how stress affects the body, even if it's not necessarily their home base. So I can speak for myself for sure. Like I have so much more understanding of the brain and the nervous system and how approaches that heal trauma can't just come from the top down. I'm a social worker, I'm a counselor. A lot of the things I learned about are about how to think differently using cognitive approaches. But my own practice has shifted significantly over the last number of years as we start to go from bottom up and understanding how the body responds. And so much of the treatment that we do today is about connecting the dots between your body remembers. There's actually a really big book in trauma called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And I was like, that's such a cool way of summarizing that, right? Like you can think your way as much as you want out of things, but your body's actually holding all that information. And yeah, pain, all of it comes together in a different way when you start
Yeah.
understanding.
I've done a guided meditation with clients before where you take them into that space where they're experiencing physical pain and
Yep.
allowing the pain to speak.
Yep.
And actually giving, listening. Is there a memory coming up? Is there an emotion coming up? Are you
Yep.
getting a color or a feeling or a thought pattern that this pain in your body is trying to express to you?
Yep.
But you've been pushing that pain away, not wanting to feel it, maybe covering it up with medication, whatever the case is,
Yep.
rather than like allowing your body to speak
Yeah.
and to come forward with the message that it has. Because we do,
Yep.
our body traps tension, and tension is emotion that hasn't been released.
Yeah, definitely. It's
So
funny. I was just thinking about that too, in a different world, working with people with chronic pain. There's nothing more frustrating in the world than having a scan or an x-ray that doesn't explain why you have physical pain. But I think what we're talking about is it exists and it's real. It's just being held in a different realm than what can be seen on an x-ray or a scan.
exactly. What would be some of your kind of go-to self-care practices that integrate all of those things?
Yeah, you know what? You cannot go wrong from the deep breath. When I have clients with me, anytime we need to get back to kind of some grounding and some focus, like you said, that fight or flight is, it's reactive, it's instinctive. We can't always control it. So there is nothing more quickly able to soothe an aroused nervous system than doing the slow, deep breathing and just creating some awareness. So I think any of those kind of grounding, certainly in my work doing trauma work, we do a lot of sensory. What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? So it's about kind of connecting all of your senses to the present moment, because it sounds a little silly, because I do get that sometimes it sounds a little bit silly, but if your nervous system is activated and either in fight, flight, or freeze, it doesn't matter. We probably could do a whole session actually on the window of tolerance and how to
Yeah,
stay in the window of tolerance. So we'll save
definitely.
that one for another day. But what I was going to say is when you're in fight or flight or you're in freeze, you're outside the present moment, what you can tolerate. Your body has taken you out. So anything you can do to bring yourself back to that present moment is so. When people go for walks, having the rhythm of touching the ground on their feet, when people listen to music, we actually naturally are drawn to some of these soothing
Mhm.
tools for our system. But I think what we're talking about is understanding why it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it needs
And
to.
one thing I always like to just remind people with deep breathing does not look like expanding your chest.
Yeah.
It's breathing into your belly
Yeah.
as if there's a balloon at the end of your belly, and that's what's expanding, because that is what stretches and expands your diaphragm
Yeah.
and actually tells your body that you're in a safe place.
Yeah.
Shallow chest breathing is sending your body a signal that you need to run away.
Yeah.
And it actually puts you into a physiological stress state.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
just a reminder to breathe into the belly.
it's amazing what we can do with the power of the mind too, to soothe our bodies in a physical way. I was just thinking about like when I teach people how to use a calm place, for example, so a place where they feel safe and connected and in a good space, we can bring that up if we can invite all of that imagery with us. So if we're feeling pain or we're feeling distress or we're feeling disconnected, I don't know, I just think it's awesome to have some of these tools, and I use them all the time. Like we can bring them up when we need them.
Absolutely. One tool that I like to teach people in regard to kind of creating faith in yourself or whatever it is drawing on a memory of a time that you really thought you weren't going to get through,
Mm,
and kind of walking yourself through the steps of it and where
yeah.
you came out the other end,
Yeah.
to remind yourself, hey, I made it through that 5 years ago. And what I'm going through right now isn't all that different. If I made it through that, how much faith can I have in myself to make it through this?
Yeah. It's almost like muscle memory, the whole
Yeah,
idea that
exactly.
if your muscle has been in that shape before, it knows how to get it back again. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think we need to be able to incorporate different ways of healing, because the same thing doesn't work for everybody. And, even clients who work with me, I'm sure would tell you, we try something, did that work? Nope. Okay, let's try something else. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like
It's a trial and error. And I think one thing that a lot of people have a bit of a misconception of is that they will find that one magic cure for themselves.
Yeah.
And they tend to look for it in one of those three categories.
Yeah.
But it really is about integrating and recognizing that like we are holistic beings.
Yes.
And so treat ourselves as holistic beings.
Yes. And it is something that we try to do here too, like taking it externally. Because I mean, part of what we're talking about is what's happening internally and recognizing we have all those systems. But I think even in working with community partners, I mean, that was the original vision of having a healing center, is that we could invite other partners into healing. Because I don't believe it's just one thing that's going to get people where they need to be, and knowing what your community resources are to help you tap into those things that you might not already have in your life. Yeah.
So what other kind of things do you guys is at the center that people could be taking advantage of?
Yeah, right now we have yoga classes going, and on Thursday nights, Shauna actually does a class to help people manage anxiety. So it's a yoga class. It's got some deep breathing. It's got some movements. So we've got classes going on fairly regularly. We were doing some meditation classes before Orange kind of interrupted us a little bit, but we're certainly trying to get some more things going out of the center too that will be available to the community. Fingers crossed for out of COVID. And makes it a little bit easier for people to gather again. Yeah, cool. Well, that sounds great, Jacie. Thanks for having this conversation. We always get so excited when we do these, don't we? Like it starts.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, starts turning on the creativity. Like, what else can we do with this? So thanks for chatting with me today.
Well, thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.